All right. And boom. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome down the security rabbit hole to yet another edition of the Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast, the industry's favorite cybersecurity podcast, going on 715 episodes in a
Crazy.
long number of years.
It's crazy.
And still going. And by the way, we've been on an AI kick lately, in case you haven't noticed. But I want to take this conversation down to something a little bit more concrete, a little bit more relatable, rather than just philosophical, to, quite frankly, what some of you guys, a good chunk of you guys that listen to this podcast actually do, and that is work alerts, work incidents in the SOC. And I can't think of a better group to put this together. We put this together like almost last minute, but you know what?
Yes.
I'm super stoked because some of you guys already know. I now work with this guy, which, like I said just before we hit record, in the stack, in the hierarchy of no brainers, this was really high up there when Dave called, and then of course you guys know Larry up here. So Dave Kennedy, founder of like 17,000 companies, but both TrustedSec and Binary Defense. Welcome to the show. Good to see you, bud.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I've been following the podcast for years, man. I can't believe we're still doing it. That is commitment. But also awesome to have you aboard, our company and helping us with this massive change that we're doing. And it's, last week we launched Night Beacon to the public, and has been what an astounding reception from the industry. I mean, just the validation we're getting from customers that we have something special here. But it's been a year of my life. My wife the other day said, well, now that Night Beacon's released, does that mean you're gonna not be working 15 hours a day and things like that? I'm like, no, I'm just getting started. Sorry, honey. Sorry, this is just the beginning.
Yeah, that was a ticket to this. Yeah. All right, cool. Good to have you aboard. Larry, quick introduction of yourself for those that have been hiding under a rock and don't know who you are.
So first off, Raf, thanks for inviting me on. I love the chats that you and I have had for the last 15 years. And Dave, it's always good to see you virtually and hopefully run into you again at Black Hat. And both of you guys, from a dedication standpoint, man, like Dave and your physiological change that you've had over the last decade, and Raf, the life changes that you've had to still be able to keep this up is amazing. So for me, I'm just this little guy. I've been in cyber for 33 or 4 years at this point.
By the way, you still look like you're like 25. I'm very jealous.
I know, that's what
you look amazing, by the way. You've also had some great weight. You've also had a transformation yourself. You look great, man.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I've been watching you. So watching you has motivated and inspired me. I've been a CISO, CSO, CTO 8 or 9 times across my career, but now I'm doing this thing of trying to, I'll say, upend the reseller market, because I think that's been a broken area for a long time that practitioners have not been able to really get around. And so I'm trying to build what I wish I had when I was a CISO. So that's where Confide Group sort of came from. And I'm having fun. I'm really, really having fun. And I feel like I'm being able to live in my faith and do things that I think align to who I am as a person. So it's a lot of fun.
That's fantastic. See, that I know it takes a while for some of us, but like I feel all three of us have finally gotten to that like point where we wanted to be. We control your own destiny. You're able to have fun, spend time with family and friends, and this is getting good. So, speaking of which, that aligns pretty well to this topic. So, look, there has been a fever pitch, and I mean like fever pitch of if you I did this morning. I went into LinkedIn and typed in AI SOC and just started reading. And it was 8:45, and part of my brain after like 15 minutes was like, okay, like you're going to need to pour a drink if you keep going. And since it was before noon, I felt kind of bad, so I stopped reading. But there is a tremendous amount of just abject nonsense out there. And I thought, you know what? We should talk about this because, Larry, you're a consumer now and a trusted advisor. Dave, you've built a platform that we're now taking to market. That's pretty phenomenal. And I think somewhere between the technology of yesteryear and the place that we've, where the Terminators take us all out, is this narrowing band of what are we really trying to get accomplished? What is the role of AI technology, the analysts in a SOC, and quite frankly, how do we actually mechanize it? And more importantly, I think I'll start with you, Dave. I'll ask you this because I think I know the answer. What have we been doing wrong the whole time?
Yeah, it's a good question. And this is such a complex subject because I think right now what you're seeing in the cybersecurity industry is complete chaos. We're uprooting everything that we've done. And this is why I think I'm so excited is I'll be honest with you, Larry, Raf, you guys have been in this industry for a long time. Were you guys just like extremely bored with cybersecurity the past 10 years? Just
yeah,
bored, nothing was changing.
Yeah. And we're bored because we've got the same problems, and the threats and everything and the velocity have been increasing, and the problems have remained the same.
Yeah. And so it's the same stuff. And so, I stopped speaking for the longest time because I didn't know what to talk about. What am I going to do? Say, hey, continue on vulnerability management, continue on asset management, continue on, building refined detections. Hey, we could talk behavioral, but nobody knows how to do that. So it was a dilemma that I had, that I wasn't providing value to the industry because there wasn't anything to talk about. I mean, it was always the hard work, the security strategy, implementing these complex systems that, we had to do in cybersecurity. And that really hasn't changed. Don't get me wrong, AI doesn't change the fundamentals of cybersecurity. We know, hey, zero trust models are resilient, right? Minimize blast radius. We know, that we have to have good visibility in our infrastructure, centralization of data. We know we have to do vulnerability management to reduce risk exposure. So those fundamentals haven't changed. What has changed, though, to me, and especially around the SOC, is it's always been a signal to noise ratio for us. And it's a very complex ecosystem that you have to do, right? So you have to have an implementation team that is continuously going through, looking at your log sources, making sure your parsers are correct, making sure you can normalize the data, and then applying detection engineering, on top of that. So you really need 3 different skill levels in many cases in that environment just to get to that specific state, right? Then on top of it, you have, the alarms that get kicked out, and then you have to have analysts that are trained to be able to investigate those. And generally, most alarms that get generated don't have enough data in it to make a clear determination on whether or not something's good or bad. So now you're having to kick over to different systems. You're having to write queries. You're having to analyze it. You might have some tools to help speed that up, to parse through the data so you can, parse it interpretedly very easily. But at the end of the day, it's still a very complex, process that you have to get working. And, out of my 30 years in cybersecurity, I've really only seen a handful of companies that have done this really well. It's really afforded to the biggest companies that are out there that have.
It takes a ton of money, Dave.
It takes a ton of money, yeah. Right? And I will say I have seen some really amazing small businesses. Listen, small businesses, if you talk about all the penetration tests and red teams that have done in the history of TrustedSec, the small businesses are the ones that always give me trouble because small attack surface, easier to lock down, harder to find that needle in the haystack. And so, but detections have always been afforded to the very elite. And what's changed drastically in what I see with AI, and this is what we were talking about a little bit before the podcast started, Larry, is we're at a pendulum swing now where we can use AI to really help the human make very quick determinations on if something's good or bad. Because AI isn't magic, but what it does do very well is its ability to integrate into systems, interpret data, and give you those results back very quickly with predefined things that you can do ahead of time, right? And so, at Binary, we're still leading with the human in the loop aspect of things, but we give the analyst everything that is needed within one central pane of glass to make a determination from the beginning to the very end of remediating that issue and making sure there's full transparency around all the actions that occurred during that period of time. And, what that's allowed us to do is one, we had talked about the complexity of parsing, implementation work, detection engineering. That's gone now. We have the ability to create universal log parsers. So if an API changes, doesn't matter, still normalizes the data. With AI, you can say, hey, what's my confidence in this technology? And if I don't understand this technology, leverage RAG and start researching, this technology to generate training data to be smarter in this technology in the future. So you've taken one complexity out, right? And that makes, the ability to get the data, normalize the data, and apply detection engineering to that data very easy now. The second part is, the agentic workflow, which really blew my mind the first time we turned this on, because I wasn't expecting it to be this good. And what happens is, as long as you have a connectors framework or an infrastructure to reach out to, your SIM, your SOAR, your EDRs, your log sources, AI understands querying language. So whether it's KQL or CQL or whatever it ends up being, one of the things that we do when an analyst gets an alarm is enrichment. And so what it does is it says, hey, we know this alarm isn't complete from start to finish. Fill in the gaps. Fill out everything that's missing in this alarm. Because a lot of times alarm might have the original command that was executed, the running processes that were in the individual area. So fill in the blanks, and it'll go through and build a whole narrative around everything that was missing, give the story. And it also creates malicious hypothesis and benign hypothesis, meaning, what are the probabilities that this is malicious? What are the probabilities that this is benign? So giving the analyst, full control over the scenarios to understand what's actually happening. And then, being able to do that agentic workflow of being able to dive into all the systems and create a full timeline of everything from initial access to post-exploitation scenarios, and being able to build that in a narrative and time step is something that used to take analysts hours, and now it's down to minutes. And, everything from, disassembly of malware, reverse engineering malware, understanding tonality of emails, automatically kicking up a sandbox detonation and extracting IOC, submitting those to threat intelligence, all automated now. And to me, what that does is it really allows you to reduce the noise substantially, and it frees up the analysts to really focus on what their job really should have been from day one, which is really finding what's going on in that environment. And to me, that is like the biggest thing that you get with AI right now. And there's a lot of other things to this too, but that's my favorite.
So here's the thing, though, and I agree with everything that you said. The challenge is companies are looking at this as a way to reduce workforce, right? So that's one of the big challenges, right? They're looking at this
Larry,
like,
you know how many conversations I have with CISOs right now that are like, hey, I need to AI everything, and I have to reduce 20% headcount. I'm like, that is the stupidest thing I've heard in my entire life. That is the dumbest thing. It's so dumb.
This is not a workforce reduction. This is helping them be better, quicker. So now you can get the faster decisions, right? Now, in theory, right, could you potentially reduce one or two positions? Yes, but ultimately you should be leveling those positions up, right? Where now, I never had enough detection engineers, right? I never had enough threat hunters. Right? There's a number of areas where you can actually, provide extra capability because you're leveraging different skills that the people that you had in those positions. Now, okay, I've automated some things that are making these people more efficient. So now maybe I don't need 10 people here, but I might need some more people over here. This is not a people replacement thing. And that's the part of this that's pissing me off around AI. The other piece is a lot of the things you said, Dave, you hear everybody say. The marketing engine in cyber has become an echo chamber.
It's insane.
Right?
Insane.
And everybody is saying the same thing. And I've 3 years ago, I did RSA bingo. And I got so tired because every place you went, it was the same thing. I'm like, I'll never do this again. Like it has become maddening. And now we're, walking into Black Hat. Black Hat is, another version of RSA just in Vegas at this point.
Yep.
Yeah.
Where
100%. Absolutely.
all of this conversation. And so when I talk to practitioners, they're confused. They are confused about what's real and what's Memorex. They're confused about what does human in the loop mean versus not, because every time they talk to someone, they get a different definition, even though they're all saying the exact same thing, right? And so for me, looking at this from a C-level perspective, right, looking at how do I help CISOs be better? How do I help them understand, right? They've got a remit to exactly what you said, Dave. Okay, I've got to AI everything because that's coming from the board, because the board's expectation, because they're not clear on what AI means for security. Now they want a 20% reduction because that's what the industry is saying AI is going to enable. It is a madhouse, right?
and let's not even and like we're not even taking into account all the AI SOC companies that are telling people, hey, just you can fire your SOC. It's gonna be fully automated now. Computers are gonna take over. You won't need people anymore. Like
Yeah.
there's a part of me that listens to that and says, do you actually believe what you're selling? Because like how do you rationally put that to the market? Tell somebody that with a straight face, knowing that what you're selling is complete nonsense.
We've
But
used these products, like, at
yeah,
Binary a year ago, the whole market was like, you have to have an AI story. You have to have an AI story. And if you look at the AI story that any company, 99.999% of them were using, they were just taking alarms and they were popping them through ChatGPT or, Anthropic, and they were enriching the narratives. That's like ground zero of this. And this is what all the marketing is built around. But if you look at these autonomous SOC companies that are out there today, it doesn't reduce complexity; it increases complexity in their environment, right? And yes, some of the things are neat around the agentic workflow areas that you can do, but to your point, Larry, you know, I don't, I used to do this thing every presentation I would give for like 4 years in a row. I would have people raise their hand and I'd ask this simple question: does anybody here feel that they have enough security budget and enough people to deal with the threats and the risks that you're facing? And I never had one hand ever raised, right? So we're always behind on our security objectives. We're always behind on what we're trying to do because security strategy takes a long time. And it's very complex. You have 3-year roadmaps and you have another 3-year roadmap and you have another 3-year roadmap because things change. And so, when you look at what this should be doing for us, it should be freeing us up to actually execute on the things that we need to get done that we've been dragging on and why we see catastrophic data breaches occur in the past. And, it doesn't mean that the SOC analyst's workflow is any lighter. In fact, it's probably more complex. I know, we look at Anthropic and they say, well, all software engineering jobs are going to be dead by the end of 2026, right? That's complete garbage. Complete garbage. Like we're the busiest that we've ever been. Our software engineering team has more things to do now than they ever have in the existence. Take the 12 years that Binary Defense has been in history and take our entire roadmap. That is times 10 of what it is right now. That entire 10-year life cycle or 12-year life cycle is what we have to accomplish now. And so, it's only increasing workload for us, not reducing it. And so where I see this going is it's finally affording the time for SOC analysts to be able to do a really good job. The biggest thing for us in an MDR is, companies expect us to be able to be turnkey in the sense of like, hey, here's the actions we took, here's everything that happened. Well, to do that takes a lot of time and effort. I mean, you're talking, if you're fielding, let's just say 5 or 6 customers at a time, and one has a PZO that kicks up and it's a major issue. Well, now the other 7 customers now are behind, and they might be having other ones. So now you have to divert another SOC analyst over to help with that area. What this is allowing us to do is to especially you talked about, Larry, the autonomous pen testing stuff. Like because red teaming is getting faster, at breach data, and then being able to do breakout cycles and move laterally is getting faster. We also have to look at and say, well, how do we shore up our defenses to be faster in every regard, from mean time to detect, to contain, to respond. And all of those things are converging right now into this. But you're right. The marketing fluff in all of this is disgusting. Like it's just, they're promising the world. And the last thing I'll say, because I'm talking a lot, I apologize. But
that's all right.
when I decided to build, Night Beacon, it wasn't because I was trying to come out with a marketing campaign, right? It was to fix our SOC. It was to embed into our SOC to make them more efficient so that what we can do out to our customers works. And just by happenstance, I'm like, oh crap, we're a year and a half ahead of everybody else now because of this. So we should offer it out as a product. I didn't come in it with a vision of a product. I came in with the vision of making our teams better and thus conversely helping, other people on top of it. So it's a crazy time right now we're living in. It's exciting as hell. That's for sure.
So I want to mention something else too, because this is the part where a lot of Larry, you said it, everybody starts to sound the same after a while, right? And as we and your job and my job, and Dave, I know you do it too. We are starting to get anybody that's even has AI in their marketing literature is starting to get questionnaires from legal and AI compliance organizations that's starting to ask questions like, can you prove that can you prove show me what you did, your thought process. Can you tell me what happened at this time? Can you tell me why that decision was made? And
Are you
all this
using our
crap
data to train your models? Right? Like,
right. Are you using some external model? Are you open sourcing it? Like, hey, does my data, is my security data used to train the model for your other customers? Like, how does this work? So this is like that moment where we started thinking like, hey, wait a second. There's something missing out of, you got velocity. You guys have heard me say this. I've got velocity and volume. All right. We can do lots, a big bandwidth of things really fast. Cool. Machine learning, all that, all the different types of AI have helped us, and we're getting on that. Okay. Accuracy and precision. So I'm able to hit the bullseye or close to it, right? More oftentimes in a row. And that's getting better, right? That's where a lot of these vendors, where everybody seems to fall off. Is you're like, great, now give me clarity and transparency, and everybody, I like, again, part of my search, everybody seems to go, yeah, no, that's not an AI thing, because AI, this magic model over here, just got to trust me. And regulators are going to go, no. So you have to have the ability to explain, show your, like, this is why. This is the sole, I think, the sole reason why I got through college in my physics class. Not because I knew any of the answers, but because I could show my work. And the professor was like, yeah, generally he knows how this is going to work, although he can't do math. So, but what, partial credit. You have to show your work. It doesn't matter if you get to the right answer or not. You have to show your work, right? And so, is it auditable? Are you making this data that all this training, does it come locally? Does it come from somewhere else? Where does the data go? All that's super, super important, because financial regulators are asking these questions, right? Who's got access to my data? This is going to be, I mean, I can see it coming now, with the massive hasty move to all these models and outside data sources and all that. This is going to become the next big source of data breaches, and it's going to be ugly.
Well, I don't know if it's going to be the source of data breaches. For me, the reality is when you think about IP and you think about privacy and you think about all of the things related to data, of where you had walls that your data was built around, and as we've migrated to the cloud, right, and now data exists in a lot of different places, and now you talk about taking this data and utilizing it in AI models. What does that look like? And now when you're talking about an AI model being on the back end of a technology that you then integrate into your company, what does that then look like? And how is that data? Is it obfuscating it? Is it not? Is it storing it? Is it not? Like, what does that mean holistically? Like, I've got teams that go around and do a tools rationalization assessment. And the data that we capture about their tools and about their environment and about how configuration and all that thing, every one of them ask, what are you doing with this information? Where are you storing it? Where are you, right? And so we literally, all of our artifacts live inside their environment, because we don't want to have the liability of that sitting inside of any portion of our environment, right? The outcomes, the findings, and all those things. We don't want that liability. Right. But it's a thing. So when you think about that in an area of what you can't see, I don't know where this is going. I don't know where this is going. I'm not going to say it's going to lead to more data breaches, but it's leading to data.
It's going to lead to more data breaches. It's going to lead to more data breaches. There is no question. And I mean, like, look at just complexity. I'll give you an analogy here. So the social engineer toolkit that I wrote, which was one of the most popular social engineering exploitation frameworks, I spent 7 years of my life writing that, right? Like on airplanes, hotels, just dedicated my life to that. And if you look at the code base for that, it ended up being around 1 million lines of code for 7 years. Okay. That's a lot of code, right? But if you look at what we're able to produce now, I mean, people are writing million lines of, just this weekend, our dev team wrote 1 million lines of code in 3 days, right? So there's so much complexity being introduced into these technologies that there is literally no way that our attack surface doesn't grow and increase. And if people think that, hey, do a bug review or security review leveraging AI is great, why don't you type that same command in again, and it's going to find more things, and type it in again, and it's going to find more things. Type it in again, it's going to find more things. So we are entering an era where these highly complex systems are going to have massive exposures. And I mean, some of the, frontier models have done a decent job of things like prompt injection and stuff like that, but it's not nowhere near foolproof. I mean, if you're all of them are still leveraging RAG to go out and get data, and you get a bad source in there, and all of a sudden your code base is compromised. And then on top of it, now you have, we always complain about shadow IT. Now every organization shadow IT. I mean, they can literally develop a CRM app in marketing for a person that's never coded a line of code. So this introduces so much complexity to our security programs. And the last thing I want to hit on is cost. So what people don't understand is, okay, you want a 20% reduction in headcount, and you want to add all this AI stuff in. By the way, all this AI stuff is all token subsidized, meaning they're burning through cash at all of these frontier models. So it's going to be super expensive, in a year or two. So you're either going to have to go and build your own, GB300 or H200 infrastructure in your own data centers with your own models from China, which, that runs into its own regulatory requirement issues. Or you're going to have to really limit the usage of token utilization in your environment for very strategic objectives. And so, talking on what you had said before, Raf, on the training data, one thing we did within Night Beacon is we create, so because it's our own infrastructure, it's our own models, we use 0 frontier models, period. We're outperforming frontier models by about 72% right now. Because we use the way we design our infrastructure and architecture, we use classifier models to do the brunt of the work. So classifier models, you can run off a CPU, and they're heavily trained on malware, threat intel, queries, analyst workflow. So classifiers cost us virtually nothing. And then we apply a generative AI model just to build the narrative on top of that, which is very cost effective, right? But the crazy part is, well, we do need customer data to make our models better, right? Because if we didn't have customer data, then our models are going to be dumb. And I can throw stuff like the MITRE ATT&CK framework in there, but it's not going to understand customer enterprise environments. So one thing I did is I created a synthetic data extraction layer, which will take the behavior of an alarm or a situation. We call them situations, culmination of alarms, the actual situations occurring, your incident. And what happens is if the model needs better training in those areas, it generates synthetic training data that has no customer information whatsoever. It's just based on the behavior of the attack that occurred. So at no period of time is there any customer data, intellectual property, or anything in any of our models whatsoever. And it just allows the customer assurance, that we're not using their data for training in our models. We're using the scenario, the situation, the behavior of what that attack occurred to make our models smarter. So, we've thought from the ground up of like, how do we ensure, one, if binary defense, God forbid, I'm knocking on wood as we speak, has a data breach, that our customer information isn't compromised as part of that. And two, how do we meet the regulatory requirements, for our customers to ensure that their information is protected? The last thing we can do is we have configurable models. So you can use our shared collective model, which is our brainchild, right? That's our smartest model ever, right? You can use a closed model, meaning it's only trained off of that customer's infrastructure. And then you can use a no training model, which means we don't use any of your information for training in any way. So it's very flexible on the customer's regulatory requirements and what they're comfortable with, because we were able to build it from the ground up, which, no one else is doing that. They're leveraging frontier models. And by the way, frontier models are fantastic, but they're generalists. They're not cybersecurity experts in any way, shape, or form. Right. Mythos is not a cybersecurity expert. It's great at taking in data and extrapolating that, but you give it an alarm, it's not going to know how to do agentic workflow. It's not going to know how to reach out to those systems, interpret that. It's not going to know what a log in this customer's environment looks like. I mean, it can give you some base analysis that it extracts out of there based on its research, but at the end of the day, it's going to underperform with things that aren't specifically trained on that organization's environment.
Hey, before we run out of time, we've got a couple minutes. I want to hit one point that we haven't yet. That this is kind of what sparked a lot of this in my head. And Dave, you touched on it, but I don't think I think you undersold it. There's it's a fundamentally, I think, a different way. And when I started this podcast is, what are we doing wrong? I think the thing that we've been doing wrong is analysts are like, the unit of work for an analyst is an alert. How many alerts can you clear out of the queue in an hour, in 2 hours, in your shift, right?
That's how it all started. Back in the early days with net forensics and
hasn't changed, by the way, in 20 years.
It has not changed. If you see red, you got to deal with the red. How many alerts can you clear out of the queue, right? And that's how you get measured. And listen, so I mentor a lot of people, and I've got one mentee who I've been mentoring for about 8 years now, right? And this young man is a SOC analyst. And he's a SOC analyst 3 now. Followed him through 1, 2, 3. Wants to be a threat analyst, all this, right? And in a big Fortune 500 company, he still is doing the exact same thing, just at a different scale, right? As a level 3. Everything is about clearing tickets.
Yep.
Everything is about ticket clearing. It is wild.
So I think that's part of the problem. So that's part of the problem. So when Dave said we start, I think it's time to start thinking about, right? Because we had a ticket, or sorry, an alert which probably generated a ticket, like one-on-one equivalent, and then somewhere in there a bunch of work happened, and then you made a determination whether this was an incident or a false positive or a tuning opportunity or something. Well, there are, but that's still like one-to-one work to an analyst. Like this is why we burn people in that group out.
That's one of the reasons. The other reason is there's no clear definition of what leveling up looks like. There's never been a clear, okay, if I'm a level 1 and I get these skills and I do these things, that makes me ready for level 2. If I'm level 2, right, that's never been created, right? If you go to the military is the only space in the world where it's very clear definitions of what getting rank means and looks like, right? Yep. And now, of course, there has to be an opportunity, right? There has to be a need for that rank in the organization you're in, but you do these things and you're pretty much guaranteed to get ranked. SOC analysts have been sitting in different layers for way longer than they deserve, and they get frustrated. They get very, very, very frustrated. And like, I've got an example. Like, I put a post out not too long ago, or maybe coming out soon. One of my food for thoughts is, are we still trying to point people into cyber, given what's happening in cyber right now from the standpoint of, before, entry level was literally tier 1 analyst was your biggest entry level point. Hey, I want to get into cyber. Oh, go get an entry level SOC position, because the SOC is one of the areas that is getting automated the most. Right? People are like, I can't find a job because so many companies are saying you got to reduce headcount, and everybody's starting at that. So is this even a space that we're pushing people towards anymore? Because it is. My daughter is working on her master's in cyber. From when she graduated 4 years ago with her bachelor's, she was unable to find an actual entry level 1 job, and I'm like, I don't know how to help her, right, in this, because the industry is just so upside down at this point.
I would flip that. I 100% agree with you, by the way. I've always struggled with kids that are coming out of college and how do you get them into this field? You either have to know somebody, or maybe a major corporation is doing an internship program, but they'll get 5,000 submissions, and they're hiring 2 people. And so, the problem is like, we don't have a good career path right now for new people in this industry. It's always been a problem of ours. So, companies want already skilled 5-10 years of experience in these areas. There's never any room for the ones that are just, getting out of college and have a good base depth, but don't have any practitioner skills in there. And so, but I do think AI can somewhat change that slightly. It's not going to fix the problem, but I think it allows, if you can become, so my son is actually going to Kent State University for artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. That's going to be his major. And I said, you have to have an extremely heavy focus on AI right now. Like, everything you do has to be AI centric. And because there's a shortage of really qualified AI folks right now. And that's always been our thing. It's like, but the problem you run into in cybersecurity is there's never been a shortage of new people coming in for penetration testing. And by the way, penetration testing is this tiny part of cybersecurity, but it's the sexiest. So you get, 1,000 people that want to be pen testers with 2 positions. Well, it doesn't work really well, right? Whereas more governance side, governance is highly desirable. There's usually a lot of positions for more advisory work, governance work within organizations, but it's not the sexy side of cybersecurity.
Well, and also they've been told, right, oh, if you want to be in cyber, you got to be deeply technical. And I'm like, what? Cyber is deeply technical. Way more than that. And not deeply technical, right? There's like, it's very broad, but everybody thinks that they've got to come in on this right side, because that's what the image of cyber is, the person in the hoodie in their grandparents' basement, right? That's the image that we've been left with.
Yeah, I want to hit on the stuff we're talking about on changing the alarms, because that's one thing that I've really focused a lot on was retooling how our SOC looks at alarms. We have, thousands of customers that we have to service, and some customers generate 80,000 alarms a day. What do you do with 80,000 alarms a day? That is just not possible. Even if you tune it, whatever, it's just 80,000 alarms. You can't, other than stacking, 10 resources at it. And again, you got that alarm fatigue. So one of the things that we looked at is conceptually, how do we re-envision the SOC, do something completely different that nobody else has done before? And so with AI, what's really interesting is, it's able to do vulnerability linkage theory, which is, linking multiple things together to create what we call a situation. And so, an attack that's going on in your environment might start out in identity. They maybe get some, credentials off of your Azure infrastructure. And then from there, they're able to pivot to an endpoint and get, remote code execution and command and control. Then from there, they start spreading laterally. Well, that entire attack might generate a culmination of, 50 alarms or 100 alarms. And, someone might be low, someone might be high, someone might be criticals. But all of those are the entire situation. So what AI is really good at is piecing all of those alarms together with all the data and being able to make a determination over 1,000 alarms versus having to go through 1,000 alarms individually. And so, our analysts, our working model is having a zero queue. We have zero queues now where we don't have anything going on, and I even developed a RPG game. It's a multi-user dimension that other analysts can play together, while we have off time, because it's got some time now for our analysts. And so, re-envisioning what AI gives us the power from, it absolutely can get you out of that 20 years of alarm triaging, but it's also an education to our customers saying, hey, you might see some alarms in there. They're dealt with, they're handled, they're automatically closed, things like that, because it's rolled up into this one situation that builds the entire timeline narrative, everything that happened, the systems impacted, the users impacted, gives you true root cause analysis. And now you have 10,000 alarms. That's one situation, and you're good to go. And so, the AI gives us the flexibility there that we didn't traditionally had. Yes, you had correlation of alarms, historically, but this is a whole different level. This is something that fixes the root cause of a lot of the problems we face in the SOC. And that's one thing that we're so laser focused on here is giving the time back to the SOC analyst to do a good job and not to be bleeding out, but also, to your point, Larry, giving them some amazing skills that allow them to progress in their career. And that could be I never understood, by the way, the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 model. Why do you want your most junior people at the front of the line, trying to identify issues when they're not skilled in those areas? So we broke things up into pods. And so we have collaboration teams between tier 1s, tier 2s, and tier 3s that are working together, in one team. And so you might have,
you know why that happened, right? It's the help desk model.
It's 100%. 100%.
It's the help desk model. It's a combination of the NOC and the help desk model put together, right?
Yep.
Like that's
how
a good
point. I think about it that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Because if you look, there's no NOCs anymore. Nobody's got a NOC. Everybody's got a SOC.
Yeah.
100%.
All right. I think it's a good place to wrap. We've covered a lot of ground. I think I think things are changing. I think they're hopefully changing for the better. The thing that I would argue is there's a ton of nonsense. If you're gonna investigate this section of the market, as you guys have just heard listening to us, be very skeptical. Ask for proof. Ask for transparency, and if nothing else, like the new unit of work has to be something other than tickets and alerts, as Dave's pointed out, and how you group them and all that stuff. So a lot of good stuff coming, but I think this is the start of an interesting conversation. Larry, Dave, thanks for joining, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Of course.
I'll see you guys in Vegas. Yeah.
Yes.
See you guys in Vegas, Larry. I look forward to seeing you again, man. And appreciate all you do. Good to see you.
Hey, and if you guys are listening and you're coming to Vegas, RAFCon is on Tuesday. I'll see you there. Take care. I'll see you guys another time, another place, on another Down to Security Rabbit Hole podcast. Bye-bye.